Hi there, I'm Joshua Finn from J&H Aerospace, and this is the second installment in the Science Olympiad Wright Stuff kit reviews for the 2019-2020 contest seasons. So today we are going to review the propeller plane from our friends at Guru Engineering Tech. Now before I get started with this video, I'd like to show you a little tidbit of interest for some of you. So this is last year's Guru plane, and what you'll find as we build through this is that there are a lot of design similarities, similar wingtips, big beefy fuselage to have absolutely no bending under load, the wing mounts, propeller assembly up front, things of that nature. The shapes of the airplane, the shape of the airplane kind of bears the signature of John Hance's designs. And that's kind of a common theme. So if you look at the, I can get it untangled here, the final version Senior Flyer, which actually didn't actually make it out into the wild in any real numbers, but from last season, and then from this season, they do look very different, so I went away from wingtips. But a lot of the mechanisms are the same. So we used, 1/8 inch balsa for the fuselage. Have this rear hook that's kind of my signature now. Sliding wing mount, all of that type of thing. Basically, there are a lot of common design attributes. Another example would be Laser Cut Planes has kind of a common design formula that they follow. So this is last year's plane, this is this year's plane. Now they mix things up, so completely different wing mounts as far as where it attaches into the wing, but fuselage attachment for that and whatnot is largely the same. Three-piece fuselage with a little kind of Z-bend scarf joint type thing, skinny tail booms way back there. The gusseting is very similar, and so on. Use a little plastic prop hangers, the slip-on kind, all of that. So the general designs, kind of bear the signature of their designers. So that's something I just find interesting. Is each manufacturer is kind of starting to adapt their own little formula for their planes, and it's kind of their signature. I find it fun. So let's pop open this kit and let's see what's inside. Sorry for the loud intrusions, but giant freaking motor sticks. I don't know how this goes, so I mean I've kind of opened up the kit and whatnot. The instructions are fairly substantially thick. Of course, there's full-size plans included in here for the wing, well, your wings and your stab. This airplane, as best as I can tell, is clearly designed just to be built as biplane, whereas we've been pushing more and more flying monoplanes. Packet of basswood hardware, all that jazz. What's in the baggie? Let's find out what's in the baggie. Laser cut parts. So, rudders, ribs, strip wood, etc. resides there. And trying to find. Oh, okay, that's different. So, propellers with some assembly required. Blades, hubs. I was like, where are the propellers? Alright. This is gonna be interesting, boys. What we're gonna do here, first of all, is they show marking out the dimensions for your spars and whatnot. I am going to just mark them off from the plans here. What I'm also going to do, though, within this is I'm going to not, actually build on the paper. And the reason for that is I like to keep these kits around kind of for reference over the years. Just lets me be able to look back, hey, what was done here or there for this particular problem or that particular problem. And also kind of follow the progression of design thought and whatnot. It's just one of those things that I personally like to do. Maybe it's a little ridiculous, but it's kind of what I've started doing. So what I'm going to do is cut my spars to size here. I probably should measure that just to verify that they're getting printed correctly. But first, I'm going to go ahead and mark for all my ribs here. Cut them to size, not a bad idea. And there we go. So now I can set the plans aside. Got your rib sets here. Again, this is all standard fare. There's nothing unusual here. These are arc ribs, so hang on. So I need 14 ribs. So that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you're including 2 extra per wing. Gross overkill on number of stab ribs included. There's enough for like 4 stabs, because no, there's enough for more than that. I'm not sure what the reason, well, I do know what some of the reason is. There was an earlier design iteration of this airplane evident in some of the pictures, including, I think, the picture on the cover looks like it shows that larger stab. I know the intro video for this airplane showed a much larger stab, and I don't know what the reasoning for where that came from was. I actually queried John Hance on it, and he's like, no, it's an earlier design iteration. I don't know why he had an earlier design iteration like that, but, I mean, it's his plane, he can do what he wants to. I was just kind of like, maybe he initially thought that the rules were a typo, and so build an airplane for that. None of this matters. It doesn't matter at all. It's just that I found it kind of interesting, and since I'm an endless pile of well of absolutely pointless, useless trivia of toy airplanes, it feeds my obsession with absolutely pointless information about toy airplanes. I'm a very sad person. My wife, I don't know how my wife puts up with that out of me, but whatever. So, ribs. This is, I'm going to show you how I built this. This is just one take on it. The ways shown in the instructions here of, building over plans and stuff, that's what smart people do. And I am a redneck, which means I build like this. So what I'm going to tell you is, if you're building this airplane, following the instructions is a remarkably good idea. And I'm sure that you will get a very, very good result if you follow the instructions. But one of the things to bear in mind is, earlier I built a 3.5-inch wingspan ornithopter, and unfortunately there's no video footage of me doing this, but I did not have plans. I used a ruler to make, I think, 2 measurements, no, 1 measurement, and just kind of guessed it out, and it flew. So The thing is, I can get away with this stuff because I've built an absurd number of airplanes the wrong way, and so I have perfected the art of building them the wrong way. And now it just kind of works for me. Like there's a video, or not a video, a photo online that's kind of like for your OC, you know, this is to mess with your OCD, and it's a 91-degree angle. And the first time I saw that, I didn't even see the caption. I looked at it and said, that's not 90 degrees. It's because I practiced for so long at being able to figure things out without actually measuring them that now I've developed an eye for that. The problem is it also means that when I do things that really require extreme repeatable precision, like going out for the US F1D team, I fail miserably because that type of the rules for F1D reward a completely obsessive level of measuring and, you know, no guesswork. And since I thrive on guesswork, F1D does not work for me. Unlimited class, on the other hand, tremendously rewards guesswork because it's no holds barred. You know, as far as you can, you know, whatever amount of power you want to go with. There are, you know, it's kind of in the name. There's no limit. So, after I finish this, I'm going to build the other wing off camera. I'm going to build the stab off camera too, because once you've seen me build a wing this way, you've seen it all. So I have already built out both wings here, and the horizontal tail. Very simple, straightforward, nothing really to say there. I have already sprayed these with 3M77 as well, the good stuff. I believe that's what the instructions call for. But anyway, the covering in this airplane, just like in the laser cut kit, is a veggie bag. So laser cut and this, actually, is this a, yeah, I think it's technically a veggie bag. It looks almost like a trash bag. But anyway, laser cut and Guru are both in their second year, at least second year, maybe more than that, of using veggie bag. I said this in the laser cut review. I'm going to say it again. I much prefer covering with a covering frame. You get so much more consistent of a result. Okay, so we got all three wings, or our wings and our stab done. So next we'll move on to wingtips. So the wingtips are supplied on this big sheet of nice sea green 1/16. I don't know if all of these include, it's not. Sorry, it's 1/32, even better. So good quality wood. I mean, it's not like mega crazy light, but it's of good weight and sea grain. The grain is going in the correct direction. I will say for the tail fins, that needs to turn, and I get it, it's a cost-saving measure, but yeah, there's some places that you shouldn't be saving money. And for the instructions, we'll cover one of the wingtips black. gets you that little bonus, which some people claim is helpful for seeing the airplanes high up. Personally, I think that's a load of baloney. But then I'm also coming at this from the perspective of Stephen Wrigley and I timed Hope's F1R on its pair of 24-minute flights up at Lakehurst, where it got all the way to the rafters at dusk. And after timing something like that, this all starts looking fairly elementary. Anyway, so you glue these just directly on the outside of the wings. And they are not full forward, so just try to center them between the spars. I don't know how well that shows up. So you've got spars sticking out here and here. Not the most aerodynamically efficient setup. I don't know how much it matters, though. So, I guess, I really don't know. At these fairly low Reynolds numbers where these planes operate, there's a lot that scientists actually do not understand. And anyone that tells you that we know how the air behaves at these Reynolds numbers, mark that person as not somebody you want to take advice from. Alright, so that's got that. Next thing is make the wing mount. So, wing mount, oops. Things. So let's do that up and park it. So, pluses and minuses. So this is your little wing saddle. It's kind of a skimpy little wing saddle, but it does work. And the way it works is that it nestles on the side of the motor stick, and then you rubber band it on. Like that. One thing I see, though, is that the grain direction on these pieces needs to be going 90 degrees, or they become very fragile and break off. Even more easily. Personally, I think those things break off too easily as it is, but I do get the design philosophy. The last year's Guru plane had a very similar wing mount, and I found that it does work remarkably well. So, anyway, there's this square plastic tube in here. And so what you're supposed to do is cut that into 4 equal lengths. I'm going to do something slightly different. That was not that easy. Kind of like our O-ring tubing. Alright, so now I'm going to take that piece and I'm going to cut it in half. And headbutt my son while I'm at it. And then they say to go ahead and mount these to the ends. I am going to suggest we do something slightly different, which is I'll go ahead and glue one on one end of this mount, and I'm going to wait on the other one. The reason is I don't trust the spacing this way. Actually, I guess I could verify that, so. Actually, no. Now I trust the spacing even less. So we'll come back to that. So there are long and short wing posts in this kit. One thing I'm noticing is that the posts in here are a little on the short side, in my personal opinion. Let me look at this a second. So I have inserted the wing post in here, and so the tabs go that way. And I haven't attached the other one. These fit. The fit to the plastic tube is actually perfect. It's tight, but it's not overly tight. I'm actually super impressed with that. And so with this, all right. So this is looking aft. I'm making this one the forward one. So you put the wing rib here on this side, because you want the wing fairly centered on this airplane. Unlike a normal plane, you would not want that, but these have to turn both directions, so you want the airplane actually fairly symmetrical, as opposed to ordinarily you'd fly the airplane in one direction and you optimize for that, so you make the left wing longer than the right and all of that. But like I said, for this year's rules, there are some interesting compromises that you have to make. Alright, so I've got the forward mount done here. Now we'll do the aft mount. And these little tab things that stick out, those work out really nicely. I kind of like that. And so we're mainly trying to keep everything straight here, and it's not going as well as I had hoped. And with bonding basswood with CA, basswood is really ornery about hardening. With CA, for some reason it inhibits the hardening process. I don't really understand why, but it does. So, that's about right. Okay, so we've got the upper wing mounted, and then what you do is slide your wing loose. There we go. And then what you want to do, make sure I'm looking at this correctly, poke a hole here, front and back, for your wing posts to fit through. Like that. Then I recommend go ahead and stick this thing back in to your wing mount saddle. You can't put it all in at once on one side. You have to do it together. There we go. Bingo. Alright, and then all we have to do now, one thing I want to point out here, which gets into design theory for airplanes. With a biplane, the wing spacing needs to be, correct. And correct means more than one wing chord spacing. So this is not the most efficient arrangement. I don't know how much you lose, but I do know you're going to lose some. And the last thing is that these little gizmos are included here to glue onto one of your wing leading edges to get proper spacing here. I think it goes like that. look at the instructions. The instructions on this part are a little unclear, which is a little on the annoying side to me, but the best that I can tell is that you rest this wingtip in the notch there, and basically you just repeat what you're doing inboard there. But the instructions don't ever actually show it fully in place, which is my complaint there, is you never see the final result, so it's a little unclear. One thing I will point out is you have to eyeball your alignment on these wings as you're going through this. There is no jigging described for you, and bear in mind with the senior flyer we have something similar to that, except we have little horizontal things here which do help ensure that you get things somewhat lined up, whereas this you're kind of on your own. It's kind of sink or swim. You gotta work it out on your own. So then, come back here, you. So this thing's gonna fit on this motor stick somewhere along here, like so. That is a huge, long airplane. I'm a little concerned about that based on my personal experience, but we'll see. Let's see here. Next topic is to install the gussets. I need 4 of these. I'm not entirely sure how necessary these actually are. I broke out one extra welt. But the way these work is they mount up here, so you've got this little notch, and these fit around, or well, that nub, these notch in these fits around there, so they fit in there like that. Like I said, I'm not sure how necessary they are, but they're cool. One thing I do see as an advantage over the R kit and over the laser cut kit is with these skinny basswood uprights, the airplane's very aerodynamically clean. I would say removing this honestly would be a good idea. I don't think it's really that important, and it's just a drag generator just hanging out there on one of your wings. Now, what's going to be really curious to me is what weight this airplane finally comes out at, because there is a lot of material in this airplane, and a lot of the wood is fairly heavy wood. Not super heavy, but anyway, after you've done that, next step is to install the tip fins on your rudder. Like I said, the grain should be going should be going up and down rather than horizontally. But as long as you're careful with the airplane, you can get away with it. It's just that's a very fragile arrangement. It's not the best use of the material you've got. And these are the same as the ones for the wing. I don't really understand why the cord is smaller than the flying surface. I think it should be equal, if for no other reason than aesthetics. But this isn't a beauty contest, so there's that. I noticed that the tip fins here are much, much larger than on last year's airplane, and I assume that at least a part of that is because in our review last year I had talked over and over about these fins are too small, and I actually said that everybody's except mine were too small. I made mine big because they needed to be, and everybody else went with these tiny ones, and it introduced some very annoying stability characteristics, because like last year's Guru plane is capable of very good performance, but it's hard to trim because the rudders are too small. The Freedom Flight was the same way. Laser Cut had a small rudder, but it was also with a small propeller, and I said the issue is if you go up to a larger propeller to get better efficiency with this plane, then it's going to become unstable just like all the others. So it looks like one company really took my advice on that. Alright, so I'm going to cut this round tube in half. I'm going to put the other half here. I don't know how these, I think these are cut with scissors, and so the end is kind of rough, to say the least, so best to snip the very end of it off. In our kits, we have, the O-ring tubing, and my wife uses a razor blade to get clean ends on all of those. Alright, so you've got this piece of 1/8 inch square balsa, and cut a piece of this that's 8 centimeters long and one that's 1.5 centimeters long. You're about to see my biggest complaint of the entire kit right here. So the thing to remember is you're given very, very little extra here. It's not 8 centimeters and 1.5 centimeters. Alright. And now you take this short piece, this 1.5 centimeter piece, and you glue it under the leading edge of the stab. You nestle it up in there. And here is where my complaint comes in. Getting that lined up, if you are a beginner, because this needs to be perpendicular to the stab in this direction and in this direction. And I get it, my airplanes do require you to do that, but it's at 2 different points, so you can wrench on things and get it right. This, not quite so much. Now the other piece, it says to mark 2 centimeters down on it. And to glue one of these plastic tubes. I guess just center it over that mark. Again, that's not as challenging to line up, but the bottom line is, yeah, there it is. So the next thing is take one of your motor sticks and bevel off the end, and then they say to run carbon fiber across this. I really don't think that's necessary, personal opinion. One of these is definitely heavier than the other, so I mean, yeah, I don't think that's necessary. I'm not going to do it. I'm just not. Okay, here we go. So the next thing you do is take your nose bearing, and there are these basswood stiffeners that fit down. So this is an Icara bearing, so it's got the little slot in the top. You slip these basswood stiffeners down in there. And then, after that, we'll make the rear. I'm going to skip ahead. Make the rear hook. Alright, so glue the nose onto the front of the plane, 0 thrust line offset. That's not necessarily the easiest thing to do, but it's on there. Yeah. Hard enough, right? There we go. And then the other thing is there are a pair of straight pins. You only use one. Take a straight pin, and you just bend this into a hook shape. It's not, the one that's shown in the instructions is nothing special at all. It does work though. You could use like a gusset or something as an offset to push the rubber down, because likelihood of that slipping up is, of the rubber slipping up against the motor stick is a little high for my personal comfort. So mark 2 centimeters is the desired number here, and stick the straight pin in there. Make sure you're on the correct side of the rubber stick. So same side as the bearing here, and then glue it in. Take your thread, same arrangement. One danger to including thread in a kit as opposed to some other things is it does tend to tangle. I do want to point out that in spite of the fact that the Guru plane is supposed to be the low-cost option, Retro RC's Minnow kit this year is the same price. They are both $33. They both build 2 airplanes. So let's say what, $17 per airplane, a little under 17, which is not bad. But I just want to point out that Guru is no longer king of low-cost Wright stuff. Now, that being said, I'm going to be very curious to see if the Retro RC airplane includes any provision for changing the circle direction. This airplane does at least include provision for it. It's just that it's a little manual. Alright, so everything's bound in place. Good. Alright, so the next thing is they include a gauge for trimming your propeller blades down to the limit. And then you assemble the propeller after that. So you use scissors to cut the blades to shape. So what you do, there are 4 propeller blades included. That means you don't get any extra tries. Not that you do with any other kit. Graphic here leaves me a little sketchy because it's kind of long on that one side, so we'll have to find out how accurate this is after the fact. What I'm going to do is both blades here. It's worth considering the amount of homework that is indicated here, though, because in order to get the blades by themselves. That means John Hance had to special order these propeller assemblies. So I just find that interesting. So these are assembled just like any other, and what you end up with is the same Ikara prop that you would have on any other of the big name Wright stuff kits. Now it's just like the propeller in my kit or the Freedom Flight one. There's my other stuff. That fits a little loose, not bad. And he does say to open up the prop hook a little. I'm going to leave it because I want to. And great, my motor stick is not, or, there must have been some glue in there because, maybe not. No, it just fits a little tight. Okay, cool beans. So, got the propeller done. Not a whole lot left. Alright, so at this point, get your knotting rubber bands, and there are no extras included, so don't lose them. So what we're going to do is we're going to take, maybe, there we go, we'll take a propeller off. If I didn't know better, I would say these are actually made from like surgical tubing rather than being actual dental rubber bands. So take that for what it's worth, which is absolute. Remember what I said about I'm an endless amount of useless model aviation trivia? Yeah. Proving it right now. Alright, so we're going to slip that off per the instructions. Slide it in place. And there we go. Now I can fit the wing back on. And honestly, that's a pretty nice setup. The last thing that you do is attach the tail here. And quite honestly, again, not a whole lot of guidance is provided on alignment, which kind of disappoints me. And this is a square post into a round tube. I get it that it's supposed to fit tight, but there we go. So if you press that down there, it works out okay. On a hard surface. And that glue is actually still not dry. It's like the plastic inhibited the hardening process. I don't know why, but it did. And then you have this other tube right here. And so you gotta do the same thing. You get it started. Come on. Why is that glue not hardening? There we go. So since the stab is offset here, you see that it's offset to one side a little bit. They say to glue this to the right side of the tail here, like that. Two things. One is that means it actually ends up offset a little bit to the right. not a big deal. But the other is there's no discussion about incidents. And I got upset about this last year because last year with the Guru plane you end up shimming up here and it bends an extra down thrust as the plane zooms around kind of nose level during the power burst. So the bottom line is you need the incidents back here more than likely. I'm going to build it with just a tiny bit of incidence. That way if I'm wrong, I'm not wrong by a lot. Now they do show, I think, show gluing. No, they don't say anything about, yeah. So they do show gluing this with the post in there. That's very dangerous though, because that does mean if you get glue back in the back, then that post is stuck in there for good and you cannot make any adjustments with it. And this is a crazy long airplane, so being able to remove the tail is quite important. For comparison, this is the laser cut planes kit, which also has a removable tail, so it's pretty long. The version Mod 2, I guess you'd say, Senior Flyer, which is the longest one that I made, you can see is substantially shorter back there. I believe that means that this is also a fair amount longer than the Freedom Flight kit, I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on it though. Regardless, that's the completed airplane. It's balancing quite a bit tail heavy, so we'll adjust that in a minute. Okay, so we've got the scale out here. Let's find out how much this plane weighs. Alright, so we're at 8.2 grams. So, I didn't use a huge amount of of glue on the airplane, and you know, I was a little concerned with all the weight here. And something to note is I noticed I used the lighter of the two motor sticks, so you got to really watch the weight on this airplane. That also means if you had added the carbon, you'd probably be up around 8.5. So that kind of concerns me a little bit because I use a decent amount of glue, probably more than is truly efficient, but I don't go like super heavy with it, so I'm a little concerned about the weight there. The other thing is CG and whatnot. I'm balancing aft of the wing leading edge or trailing edge here, and that's a problem because that's not going to be stable at that location. So you're going to end up having to slide this wing further and further back, and there's no weight budget to start putting clay up front. So we may have to do so anyway, and that's a bit. We're going to give the plane a test glide because the instructions say to give it a test glide. I have not put any incidents or anything in there. I think the airplane's actually going to nosedive because I need some up trim. Remember what I said about that CG? So what we are going to do is slide the wing back some more, which is going to make the airplane less stable yet. I'm going to have to add clay to the nose, and then it's going to get very heavy. So CG is at least not as crazy as it was before. It's still not going to. Yeah. So some of the sticky tack out of the kit, which I didn't want to do this, but I don't have a choice at this point, because if I keep sliding the wing back, I'm losing more and more tail moment. The airplane's going to get just harder and harder to trim, because I've still got that long length that the rubber motor is distributed over. So that puts my CG a little less insane. Still not where I want it. It's at least trying to fly. So something interesting I want to point out, I don't know if you noticed, when I launched the plane it went nose down and it actually started pitching back up a little bit as it picked up speed. which kind of surprises me because I don't think I have any incidents really to speak of. I must just have just enough. There is a difference in the curvature of the wing airfoil, and the stab airfoil is a little bit flatter, not a whole lot, so that may be it. I don't know. I'm messing up. Doesn't fly half bad. Okay, so I wound it up some more. We're still, I have not changed anything, so let's see what it does. Okay, that actually is going pretty good. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is, since the stab is just in this rotary thing, I'm going to bend in a little bit of right turn trim there. We're just going to see if it looks like it's stable with that. That's going to be a no. Try again. I mean, that's like a lot. No, it is not doing it. Okay, so I added a little more sticky tack to the nose. One thing I want to point out, the instructions say not to hold the propeller like this, but to hold it like that. Presumably, the issue is kids chucking the plane like this. So, to quote the Apostle Paul leading up to the love chapter, and yet I show you a better way. Instead of doing this, which is going to involve, I mean, look, kids, high school students, y'all don't have greatest skill in this, most of you, and so this, if you're walking around, you're easily going to do that. So hold this like this, and then when you're going to launch, all you do is, an instant before you throw the plane, let go of the prop, like this. And let's try that one more time. A little more rudder offset to the right. It definitely wasn't really turning. That looks fairly stable. Okay, so what I'm really trying to do is I'm trying to show, or determine the level of repeatability of these adjustments. So I'm going to just return the rudder back to, basically to neutral, which is where I started out with it. And we get a very stable left turn. The propeller plane from Guru Engineering Tech. It's nighttime, but I went outside and test flew this. It's fairly calm out there. There's a little drift, and you can tell the plane was moving around a little bit. Not too bad. Trim changed quite a bit, though, from in here, in that I slid the wing back even farther, and I also added in a little bit of incidence right here, so I slid the trailing edge of the wing down about 1/16 of an inch, and that got me an okay left-hand pattern going, as in I was able to get the airplane to do what it's supposed to, climb and descend. It was climbing nose level though. Sorry, I got some crud in my rubber motor there, but it was, a little iffy. Turning to the right was actually quite a bit better. It just flies. Once I got that, I had to slide the wing back even further, and then it started going pretty nicely to the right. Quite a bit of rudder offset. I mean, like, that's a lot of rudder offset to get it going to the right. But finally got it going, and it's happy. So the airplane flies well. On the other hand, my right turning flight, which was the more heavily wound of the two decent flights I got going from it, that was 36 seconds. It hit a bush, so it would have been 40. But my point is, I wound pretty hard to get that. Like, torque meter is needed hard to get that. And by comparison, like the plane from Laser Cut, you just wind it up and it's brute force. It just goes. And if you're, using a torque meter, this is a plane you're going to have trouble keeping out of the ceiling, because it's a monster truck of Wright stuff as far as it's got gobs of power to burn. Whereas this airplane, yeah, it's kind of on the edge there. So again, my big issues. Torque meter is not really talked about in the instructions. CG is not talked about in the necessary detail in the instructions. My CG ended up where I thought it would be, right at 50% root chord. So that's not described in the instructions. It does not say where to balance it, at least not that I could find. I mean, maybe I'm reading it wrong, but you know, if I'm wrong, y'all correct me in the comments section, please do. This back here, you've got to, I mean, I made some marks, so I should be able to repeat it decently, but that's kind of sketch city back there. Let's see, what were my other things? A little bit difficult to line this up. I mean, there's some guesswork on that. No discussion about how to do incidents back there, or whether to do incidents back there, or what have you. And the airplane's heavy without the motor. So the weight of the airframe balanced out is 9.58 grams, almost 9.6, as opposed to an 8-gram minimum weight on an airplane that has a tiny propeller. So weight is killer on this. So it's overweight, and that's with me leaving off the carbon fiber strip on the top. So I'm really concerned about the weight aspect of this. It does fly well. It looks, once I got it trimmed, it was gorgeous in the air. And you'll see some footage either at the end of this or in a compilation. We'll probably do a compilation at the end of all the planes flying. So, the aspect there, I'd say, is it looks great in the air. I think it's fairly competitive, but there are some issues I have with it, especially the weight aspect, which I'm really quite surprised, because last season's Guru plane required ballast to get it up. I mean, it was really well tuned to the rules. This one, there are a few issues there, and like I said, it's a solid design. It's a solid design. It goes well, but there is stuff missing from the instructions, and it's heavy, too heavy. So those are my issues there. But as an airplane, once I get it trimmed, once it's flying and whatnot, I'm going to say thumbs way up on this. I think it's a competitive airplane. I think this would be, if you could shave some weight off of it, I think it would be nationally competitive. I think it'd be competitive against anything out there. But in its current form, I'm going to say I'll stick with my plane. That's just my concern as far as the weight. But like I said, I like the plane. I really do. I would not call it a pretty airplane, but it's a good airplane. Hi, I'm Josh Finn. This is Hope. We are J&H Aerospace.
If you like this video, hit the like button.
Also, how about subscribe to our channel and check out jhaerospace.com for new free flight products and all of the tooling that you'll need to build them.
Thanks for watching.